G'day and welcome to Aussievision. I'm Dale.
I'm Liv.
And I'm Craig.
And yes, as you can hear, we've got Liv and Craig joining us today for our season.
That's what we just said, Dale.
It's for our season finale for 2025. I thought it would be good to have Liv and Craig on because they've been so involved this year in the season. Liv very much on the ground, particularly in Basel, and Craig looked after everything in Australia. So we're going to run through not just Eurovision 2025, but the season as a whole. Are you guys feeling recovered from the Eurovision 2025 madness of the week it was, Liv?
I think anything compared to last year is going to feel invigorating. So, to be honest, I've kind of bounced back and I'm kind of ready for more action, actually. I don't think I've ever recovered this quick before. I'm really excited for next year, to be honest.
And you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, after 2024, I really felt like I don't think I'd ever been quite so disengaged or felt so low about the contest generally. Like, if you'd asked me, I'd like, you both know, in 2024, I went on holiday during the contest and basically said, don't contact me, and watched it on a screen from Malta because I was like, I've had enough. But so I was really low coming into this season, but this season has been much better. It's felt like a much more positive vibe sort of everywhere. Of course, in some ways, I'm more concerned about the future of the contest now than I was 12 months ago, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But in terms of my personal feeling about it, I'm feeling really positive. And like Liv, I've bounced back really quickly, and I'm actually pretty excited to get into some Albanian national finals in like 6.5 months.
Oh, I love the enthusiasm. And I know what you mean, though. It was a very interesting season because I think so many people struggled from last year. No matter where anyone felt about the whole thing, it was a very dramatic season. So I think that kind of crossover into some of the things that happened this year. It was quite, I don't know, as a whole for the season, including national finals and Eurovision, there's quite a few different little key things that came out, I think, through the whole season. Anything jump out for you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, if I think back to the point at which, because I remember right at the start of the season, I wasn't that hype. And I was trying to think about the moment where it suddenly felt like the magic was back and I was kind of into it. And you know what it was? It was that morning in like February or something where Erika Vikman and Kant won within like an hour of each other. And I was like, oh yeah, we're back. This is good. And I think following, like, particularly, I mean, Dale and I have talked about Kant's no end this season, but it's been, I think following that narrative has been really a highlight for me. It's been really fun watching her sort of go ups and downs. And even during rehearsal week, I'd wake up and I'd be like, is it on? And Dale was like, it's off. And then, you know, it kind of was in the end, but I still had a good time.
It was a big narrative of our season. Yeah, go on, Liv.
I was going to say, you definitely hit the nail on the head that, like, it started off rough, right? I mean, it started off all the way in Montenegro with a song that won that didn't even end up going to Eurovision. Do you know what I mean? So that sort of set the scene where everyone was a bit like, oh, gosh, here we go again. And then I think you're right. Sometime in February, momentum got picked up. We got to see the songs in a bit more context. And then it was like, okay, well, we do have some really good stuff in here. But I think the interesting thing is we felt this all season. Nothing was winning. Nothing was a standout winner. There was a lot of really solid songs. I would say the top end and the bottom end of the bell curve were much narrower than usual, and the middle was just very strong. So it created a very interesting year where it felt like nothing was winning until Austria just won.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I'd have to say, like, and not anything harsh about the season at all. And I even noticed this in the national finals. Like, we do a little like poll with fans after the national finals. What are your favorite national final songs? And the top 10 just looked very mid. There just wasn't these like, oh, these like Rob national final songs that are just absolutely amazing. It just felt like, oh yeah, they're all the right results. And then when it got to Eurovision again, it felt like everything was just very solid without this kind of standout happening. So it kind of felt like a year of maybe not the highest top quality. I agree, Liv. But I think I put this down as a year of fun. Like, I felt like we rediscovered some fun songs like Erika Vikman, as you said. There was Khan, Sweden going, with Kai was massive. And then the comeback of languages, like for Sweden and Germany to be sending songs in Swedish and German. I was like, what is happening in the world? So I have to say, like, low quality, fun, and language. I think they're the three things that came out for me.
Can I jump in here? Because I think I have that same feeling as you've both described, where nothing felt like a winner. But to me, and perhaps I'm reading too much into it, it feels like a bit of a crisis of identity and what the contest is actually for at the moment. Like, if you think about what people look for in a Eurovision winner, like when a song comes out, how do we in our brains sort of assess, is this going to win Eurovision? And there's sort of I think we have a model of what a winner looks like. Like, it's not a specific model. You can't pin it to one genre. You can't pin it to one sort of type of act. But there's sort of a set of things that we're looking for in terms of impact, et cetera, et cetera. But at the moment, I just don't feel like we have all the fun songs. We have some ballads and stuff, but there doesn't, with the sort of added diversity, which everyone's been talking about in terms of genres, in terms of languages, it feels like in that diversity, it's harder to assess songs against each other because they're all so different. Like, how do you ultimately compare a song like Maman or like Voyage to a song like Ik Promet or to a song like Barabara Bastu? That's always been a feature of Eurovision, but because the diversity is so much right now, it becomes hard to, like, you're comparing apples against oranges, and therefore it's not always immediately apparent whether the apple or the orange is going to be the fruit of choice for the audience that year, if you get me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's also because there's probably less of the very sort of, I guess, sophisticated, well put together Western style music, which we kind of expect to win. Or occasionally there'll be something just stands out in its own. Like, I mean, Portugal when it won, Ukraine when it won. I do know what you mean, but also maybe it just wasn't very good this year. Like, and I think also like the points reflect that, because ultimately, what Austria got on the points and what a lot of the other high places like Israel in second would not even be in the running in any other year. So I think they delivered everything up in this smorgasbord of songs and the audience just went, meh, that'll do.
I'm being glass half full.
That's totally reflected in actually the points and the way they were distributed this year. Like the bottom five, for instance, were 47 points, 47, 37, 33, 27. That's heaps. In any other year, you're probably not in the, like, that's so much for the bottom. And the top was not that big. And then when you kind of look at the distribution, it doesn't have that usual peak and then rapid decline like we normally see, which, as what you guys are saying, is like everything was just kind of spread everywhere. Everyone had so much choice, and then Austria managed to benefit from that by having enough in both camps to swing to the front.
But at the same time, I'd also point out, I think that the divergence between the juries and the televote, which we've seen increase since they pretty much were reintroduced as sort of two parts of the scoring, like that's hit new peaks this year. We saw things like, Switzerland coming top 5 in the jury and then 0 points from the televote. Like that's a new extreme. We've not seen. I think the only past example of that, which you can see, is something like Azerbaijan qualifying with 0 points from the televote a couple of years ago. But so there's, yes, in terms of the overall points, much flatter than previous years, but we're still seeing sort of the two halves of the scoreboard. They become more and more divergent each year, which raises, I am pro jury. I'm not here to diss the juries, but it's kind of like you do have to think about what they're for and like what sort of results are we trying to get here, because scoring systems are about the results you get at the end of the day.
All right, well, I think we'll get to a bit of scoring systems, and we might even touch on the winner a little bit more about where it places overall. Let's just talk about Eurovision 2025, held in Switzerland. I wasn't particularly excited about Basel and excited about the show and the hosts, but I have to tell you, by the end of the week, I thought, what a fantastic host city and what a show and production and what great hosts. I thought overall on the show and what the host city did was just absolutely incredible. I mean, what did you think about Basel itself? Liv, you were obviously over there.
Yes, I was definitely on the ground with you. What a week it was. I will totally agree. Like when we both first got there, we were like, this is kind of dead. Like, where's the vibes? And then once a few Euro fans, got off their Jetstar flights and arrived, we were like, oh, okay, it's a vibe. We love it. And I thought Euro Club was really fantastic. The venue, the actual stage it was quite amazing to see what they did with that small arena, because you could not tell watching on telly how compact it was in real life. It really looks stunning, and I think that lent itself to really high quality staging overall from everybody. And yeah, the hosts, it took me a minute after a few rehearsals to kind of get the vibe, but by the end of it, Hazel was, the absolute star of Eurovision this year, really.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously wasn't on the ground like you guys were, so I could only process what I was seeing through my TV screen. And I really did a sort of 180 on the hosts in particular. Like in the first show, I think, and I mean, I think I speak for all the team here. I was like, who are they? Where did they from? And I was getting sort of Austria 2015 vibes. Like none of the jokes were landing. And I don't know. It's something about like quite often with German speakers, I find they're probably really funny in German, but then they try and make jokes in English and it just didn't quite land. And I was getting that. But my gosh, as the week went on, like Hazel especially, she's already been mentioned, but what a star! Really sort of lent into it, just like unhinged aside from anything else. Like she got weirder and weirder as the week went by. But I was honestly, it felt like a new thing from a Eurovision host. We've had the sort of like, grande dame, sort of like I'm the queen of the show personality before, like Petra or Hannah Waddingham or something. But like Hazel was just a bit weird, and she was just kind of there to have a good time, and that really added to it. So she was absolutely a star for me. She really made it really entertaining, even getting up at 5 a.m. And as you said, the production really fantastic. I heard, and you guys can perhaps confirm, that the venue itself was quite small. Didn't feel it on screen at all. It felt really large. The stage felt huge, as people have said. Interesting gimmicks, like the frame sort of thing, was really good. And something I perhaps take for future years moving forward is the frame felt like something we hadn't seen before. And it would be nice to see people try and reinvent the wheel a little bit without just, you don't have to go completely new, but just coming up with something which can, put a mark on this year, can be something different. I don't want to frame every year from here on in, but I'd like to see, perhaps Austria or something come up with their own thing, which will give the year its own distinct visual identity.
Yeah, I think what really shocked me is watching it on TV compared to the arena, very different. As Liv said earlier, it is a really small place, but my God, it felt big and bold and huge. And even, I think it probably didn't take me as long to get into the host, and I think it was when we were watching it in a dress rehearsal. I think I even looked at Liv, I was like, what are these jokes? Like, this is terrible. Like, this is going to be so bad. And then suddenly, I think it might have even been the Made in Switzerland. It just kind of turned, even that started off me going, oh, they're just trying to be Swedish, and this is not working. And then they said LSD, and then the neutral weapons industry, and I was like, I am won over. This is fantastic. And as you said, Craig, she just got weirder and weirder as the week went on. I'm obsessed. Like, a new star is born, a Eurovision legend now. I can't get enough of her.
And the costumes, man.
Oh my gosh, yes, those recycled costumes, fabulous. I wish everyone could see what we could see in all the rehearsals, because the amount of ad-libbing that Hazel did, that was just so hilarious. Like, the whole press room was going crazy. And I can confirm, Del, it was Made in Switzerland. That was like the moment where we both looked at each other and actually smiled for the first time during like any of the things that they'd ever done.
Oh dear. Well, look, that were very much the big positives, I think, of the whole thing. Host, the show, the look, everything worked. It was a great host city. They rolled out for the turquoise carpet. We had Lumo, the amazing mascot that I was privileged to meet. Euro Village was great. The weather was fantastic. It was just a really cracking Eurovision. Probably number 2 for me behind Liverpool on the ground. I really enjoyed it. But there's always a downside, and we've got to bring on the downsides here. Look, we did touch on it before, a little bit about the winner, and this is not a downside, but I would argue that I think, and look, I've not been a big fan of this song all season, but even in the points and even where it all felt about things, this to me almost feels like the weakest winner since 2011 for me. It felt like a bit of a 2011 year, and we got a 2011 winning song like Running Scared. This is not going to go down as an iconic Eurovision winner. Your thoughts, Liv?
Unfortunately, I have to agree, and I think possibly it's almost even more forgettable than 2011, to be honest. But Look, JJ was very capable, and I'm happy that they did finish first in the end. But ultimately, you've got to, if you're going to favour anything in Eurovision, it has to be leaning towards the televote. The fact that we've had a couple of years now where the televote winner hasn't won, but particularly how far down the pecking order JJ was, it does indicate something has to change here, or you are going to start alienating your fan base. Really. So it is a little concerning in that way, but I am happy to go to Austria and have a good beer next year.
Yeah, first of all, I do want to say, like, I'm not sure I necessarily wanted the televote winner to win this year either, Liv. So I think there's problems going on both sides right now. And I'm not that sympathetic to the jury stuff. So I'm going to put that out there. However, this is not good. Like, I'm so sick, and I'm sorry, I need to get this off my chest. I'm so sick of feeling relieved about the Eurovision winner instead of excited about it. The last 2 years, we've had these sort of winners, and in the moment, you're like, oh, thank God, like, we've got this winner. But then Nemo at least felt like something new. There was something really maximalist and sort of stylistic about it. This is just, like, the further away I get from it, the less, like, the more sort of the staging didn't quite work. JJ's a good vocalist, but it didn't feel like there was a passion or a sort of vision there other than let's do opera on stage. And overall, I honestly was longing for, the charisma of Ellen Nikki in the moment. Like, it's just, I was missing it, I was running scared from this a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. So I would like to feel excited about the Eurovision winner. It has happened. Like, I loved Tattoo, loved Zitia Buoni, so we can still get those great winners. But something's not working at the moment because I'm sick of going into work on the morning after the final and having people not want to talk about the song that won. Like, that's not how it should work. People should be excited about the song that actually won. And even when something like Loreen won and it wasn't the televote winner, Loreen was still a story. Loreen was still worth talking about. I just don't think that this was anything that anyone was that excited about. And I think the overall emotion that people are feeling is relief. And that's not a good thing.
Yes, and I should clarify, I think when I say the televote winner, yes, maybe not this televote winner, but I'm saying something that at least goes strong in the televote and the juries. I mean, to have these extremes where, things are doing really high in one and not in the other, and either nearly winning or winning, is just not good for the contest ever. And for the everyday viewer, it's just confusing for them. They sit there and they go, oh, well, that one, it got like whatever points in the televote. Oh, okay, cool, no worries. But you are right. Like, we want to feel really celebratory about the winner, and to have this be 2 years in a row of a similar feeling with a similar kind of song, pop opera, it's a bit of a letdown in that way.
And actually, one other point, sorry to drag on with this, I feel a lot of emotions about this, as you can tell, but it does feel a little bit like after, in the late 2010s, yes, we were getting this increased diversity, yes, there was sort of different stuff coming in, but it felt like Eurovision was still in touch with the sort of broader musical conversation happening on the European continent. You could have winners which actually felt like they did something, like Tattoo did something, Zitia Buoni did something, Arcade did something, and they were in contact with music that people actually just listened to. I feel like we're back in the era of Eurovision songs being Eurovision songs in quote marks, and that's not a diss on something like The Code. I think The Code's pretty good. It's a diss on Wasted Love, sorry. But as a broader point, I'm concerned. I would like us to perhaps move back to a space where Eurovision songs are also just songs.
Yeah, and I think a key thing here is, and this is a byproduct of the televote 100% semi-finals. We could see this coming a mile away, and what they were trying to do is make it less full of jury songs, but ultimately what they've done is filled it with more public vote songs to give the jury songs a much bigger advantage in the grand final. You also get a situation where a lot of artists may not want to go into Eurovision because they have to go through the gauntlet of the televote. Let's go up against the singing dog, not a literal dog, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like the ridiculousness that comes through, and we've seen it in the last 2 years. So if you've got that to contend with, you can see people going that fun stuff. You're not going to attract the great artists. I feel like in the early 2020s, we were getting fantastic stuff. I thought the quality of songs in 2022 was amazing. The top couple was done really well. You can still have fun like Cha Cha Cha, but still do it really well. Like we went a bit fun and silly this year, and that was a nice light relief from like the potential end of the world. But I want quality back, and they need to bring juries back into the semi-final to increase that overall. And I think we'll end up seeing public vote songs do better, and we'll get better quality songs and artists. I do think you need to bring it back, and not just because it'll help Australia as well.
Although that would help as well. But yeah, just to give an example of that, I know everyone's sick of hearing me talk about Luan, but like she looked really sad when she got 50 points off the televote, and I'm genuinely concerned. The French have been really trying. They really want to win. They've been getting these big artists. I'm really concerned that they're not going to be able to get another big artist to sign up for it after this year. That's not to say that Luan should have won. Like Luan perhaps shouldn't have eaten the dodgy pink chicken the night before the grand final, because it came out on stage. But as a general point, yeah, I think that's a really good example of where I'm concerned about the general direction, perhaps in attracting big name artists. You should be getting the Luans at Eurovision.
We didn't even get any repeat artists this year, did we? So I feel like that's a bit of an indicator as well. Like no one came back for a second try this year.
I mean, Mons had a crack, but he didn't make it there, which is interesting because I think if Mons was in it, he could have won it potentially, I think. And it would have felt kind of the same as Wasted Love, where it feels a bit tick box, but we'll leave that debate for another day. Now, I do want to move on to the other thing that's come out of it, talking about scoring and voting. Voting's definitely been a huge thing, and I think people are really concerned about the voting, the public vote, the advertising it around it all. I think it's a really tricky one because we're looking at a very specific set of circumstances, because this has always been part of Eurovision. And when we go back to having particularly the 100% in the semi-final, this happens in the diaspora. You can look at nearly all the good public vote winners this year, maybe apart from things like Estonia, and go, well, their votes all came from those certain countries and they were really propped up by a lot of things. You've still got to have quality, but diaspora and community voting has always been there. I mean, and people have always advertised. Malta was advertising on Grindr. It didn't help her. She flopped in the public vote. So how do we contend with the fact that this has always been part of Eurovision, but it seems now it's being done to a really crazy level that potentially is impacting the contest?
Yeah, I mean, we all know which sort of entry we're talking about with this. We haven't said the name, but I think the concern I have, and a lot of the conversation has been focused on this idea of, did the Israeli broadcaster cheat, for example, or did the Israeli broadcaster put all these vote ads out which sort of got votes up? I think the question which people probably need to reckon with is, even if you took away the ads, even if you took away all that stuff, what happens if you come back next year and Israel wins the public vote again, just because what they're doing is that, like, there's a lot of people out there who are just motivated to vote for Israel. Like, I think the bubble isn't. We live in a bubble. But like, there are people out there who are just earnestly going out there and doing it. And what if it's a problem? And as Dale says, like, this isn't new, and it's almost sort of like we look on when it happens with other countries, we're sort of like, oh, isn't that cute? Like when Lithuania draws, the UK and Ireland in a semi-final, we're like, oh, welcome to the final, Lithuania, ha ha ha. But like, and yes, it is cute. That's not a diss on Lithuania. Love you, Lithuania. But yeah, I think there really needs to be a sort of reckoning with the idea that, like, what do we do if the big vote is like organic rather than being sort of constructed? And a lot of the conversation right now is really focused on this idea that the vote is constructed. And maybe they're right. We'll see. But I think it's a real sort of concern.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, when you think about when you're being advertised stuff like this, I mean, I always wonder how effective it is anyway. But maybe they could do something like what they do in F1, where there's like a cost cap kind of thing, I suppose, to try and level it out. Not that, Moldova's going to have the same budget as Greece or Australia or something would have to spend on advertising, but maybe just to try and at least put some kind of parameters on it so that it's not completely unlimited, so you're not running away with the F1 World Drivers' Championship in your Red Bull. But I don't know. Like, I think there are some options here, or at least being a little bit more transparent about what is and isn't allowed. I think that is the word of last year's Eurovision, was transparency is what we wanted from the EBU. And if they can at least put some stronger, which they have responded. They gave us a very big media book this year with a lot more detail and stuff than ever before. But expanding that transparency, I guess, to try and, safeguard our competition in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a really tricky one. I do think it's also something around just the first past the post system and 26 songs. And I think a lot of people do get really confused. It's like, oh, on the SBS primetime, it only got 23% of people liking it, but it won the public vote. I'm like, well, you only need potentially 15 to 20% of the vote to actually win and get your 12 points. That's just the way the system works. And the more that you have this thing with 20 votes and then also people using multiple phones, which isn't just about people voting for Israel. I know people on the Aussievision team who had 100 votes.
Haley, shout out to you.
And I mean, this is it. We can't, it's being in glass houses and throwing stones. It's just that there's a broader support and for people who want to do it for Israel, as an example, but not just them. Ukraine as well, of course. We know they get the public vote every time. So we do need to look at trying to cap it, both in terms of spending on advertising or not have the advertising, capping somehow on the voting to try and reduce the impact. The impact will be there, but reduce the impact, because the scoring system of Eurovision, it works, and it has worked for so long, and it's part of the kind of cuteness and the politics that we all love. But then there is a danger now that it actually is going to be taken to another degree here. And I think, yes, there's been chasing the almighty dollar and its corporatization of Eurovision, but it's having the potential effect where it's actually going to really damage the brand. And this perception that Israel has somehow, they haven't rigged the vote, they've just played it well. This perception of it is damaging the reputation of Eurovision already, even if it's true or not. That's what people's perception are. So you've already got a problem to try and solve. I don't know what the answer is, but they've got to tackle it somehow.
I think there is one simple change that they can make, is to stop the vote opening at the start of the show, though.
Yes.
Because it would at least silence people who if people are thinking that there's rigging happening with votes and the show itself goes for 1.5, 2 hours, well, that's 2 hours to fluff around with it and do whatever it is you think people are doing or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if we just open it for that 15-minute period, well, it's harder for people to cheat if that's what we're worried about.
Yeah, and I think it becomes really hard because a lot of what people are talking about is, why do people televote? And there's this idea that there are people who, are really voting because they like the song and stuff. And then there's people who are voting for other reasons. But in reality, it's like people can, as we've discussed before, sometimes it's just that people in particular regions respond to particular types of songs or artists in different way. And again, this isn't about Israel. This is about the broader question of what's going on with the televote. I don't think at the end of the day, you can just say, stop voting for Ukraine or stop voting for Israel or stop voting for whatever country. People will vote for whatever country they want to. It ultimately has to be, as Dale says, a question of accepting that's an inherent limitation of the televote and trying to moderate the impact it has on the overall scores. Because I just don't see any other way out of this in the long run.
Yeah, it's a tricky one all round. I don't think we're going to solve it here, but I think this is the discussions that a lot of fans are having, and I think the EBU are aware, and let's just see what comes out of this. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath, but we'll see. But yay, juries. So before we move on from Eurovision 2025, the show and the results, and we'll talk a bit about Australia. I thought maybe on a positive note, because we've kind of talked about some of the stuff that's been a bit, not great. I've got one from each of us, a positive result that came out of Eurovision 2025 for a country or person. I'm going to start, and I'm going to say I am so effing happy for Albania to come 8th overall, make only their 3rd top 10 ever, with such an incredible performance that I said early in the season had no chance of making the top 10. I was very happy to be wrong, and I totally changed my mind during the week. It was an amazing performance. They had to go last. I thought they did such an incredible job and such an incredible public vote. They should have been higher. The juries were harsh on them, but I was so happy to see Albania. All those hours of watching Fick have paid off for a good result for them. They needed it and they deserved it. How about you? Liv? What's a highlight for a country from Eurovision 2025?
Well, it's going to come to no surprise to regular listeners of myself, but it is Italy getting another top 5 result when a lot of people thought they couldn't do it. And you know what? I was talked out of picking Italy as the highest placed Big Five. I never should have been talked out of it. I should always back Italy is what I've learned from this. The one year I backed off because everyone told me, no, you're delusional. This is actually not a good entry. Bam, it resonated. It was beautiful. And they got another top 5. So I'm going to say congratulations to Italy once again.
I'm going to look a little bit further down the table for mine. And I'm going to talk about Denmark.
Oh.
And Sissel. Because nobody hates Denmark more than me. I whenever Denmark non-qualifies, I'm like, yep, you know what? You probably did that to yourself, guys. But I really loved Sissel this year. I thought it was sort of campy gay pop perfection. And she had nothing with her but a bodysuit and a dream and some streamers. But you know what? She actually brought them back to the final. And every one of those 2 points she got from the televote at the end was so well earned. So proud of you, babe, Sissel. Congratulations, Denmark, on making it back to the final. Hopefully you can get 3 points next year instead.
Oh, I tell you what, I would have killed for those 2 points this year from Australia. So well done, Denmark. And it was well done for them.
Oh, actually, one other one? Can I just give a shout out to Mirjana Conte for getting 8 televote points, 5 of which came from Australia. I've never seen anything more Australian than us being the only country to vote for the cunt song.
Yes, very true. I thought we'd have to have a Malta mention there, and even though we've done the whole 3 already, I just have to go one more thing. Bloody Portugal. No matter what we do, they cannot be defeated. They are like the Terminator or whatever. They cannot be defeated. They find a way to get in there, even with a very average song. Like every single time I say they're going to fail, they do well. So I'm just giving up. I'm not even going to even attempt to predict Portugal next year.
Dale, you know I'm a Portugal guy. I'm always the one making fun of you. Literally in the hours before semi-final 1, I sent a message to Liv saying, I'm a Portugal guy. I'm giving you the right to write them off this year. And then even I was wrong. So their power is unmatched. We love you, Portugal. And I can't wait to see you in the next 10 finals as well.
Oh, the powerhouse they are. All right, well, let's turn our attention to Australia now, because obviously it was a bit of a tough year. We came 11th for the second year running with exactly the same amount of points, though I would argue probably a better overall entry and probably a tougher way to get into the final there too. Before we go into maybe not what went wrong or where we're at, I'd like to hear from both of you. What do you think we did well this year? What do you think went well with our overall entry? And I'll start with you, Liv.
I think the number one thing from here is that it was always a really well-produced, catchy pop song. And he's got so much charisma. You can look at all the charts post-Eurovision. It's doing really well. So the song itself, I don't think was the issue. I think it obviously was the staging that kind of fell apart in the end. So as a positive, I want to say that he's mega charismatic. This was, I think, the biggest campaign I've ever seen from us, so that's really positive to see. And the song itself is a bloody banger.
Craig?
Yeah, I think what I'd really draw out is it felt like both Gojo and SBS really cared this year, and like that actually poured time and commitment and energy. And that's not to say that they didn't care in previous years, but I think Voyager were great. They were really great ambassadors too. For example, Electric Fields, we love them bringing Indigenous culture to the stage. But it felt like Gojo really had his heart in it, and it felt like SBS was really behind him. And that just made it all the more crushing when he didn't get through in the end. But I think the amount of just sheer care and effort that went into it this year, you can't fault them. And I really, really hope that we keep seeing that care and effort in future years. Please don't let this be disheartening.
Yeah, I'd have to echo what you both said. I think the song was there. I think the charisma was there. The promotion and the real effort with it. We could even see it at the Australian Embassy party. They They really went all out. That bar was expensive bar because we hit it a few times, and they got everybody there. And you could just see in everything they did, they were really having a real good crack at it. They really kind of wanted to do something fun for the 10 years and bring that into it. But ultimately, it's I agree, Craig. Actually, it did make it more crushing because of last year was like, okay, well, we can kind of see why that happened. This year was like, oh, that's gotta hurt. It was really the Ralph Wiggum, ball to the heart. You can see there's some video taken, and even the people from SBS, you can see their faces are ashen at the end of it from the whole thing. It's like, how did that happen? So, how did it happen? Where did we go wrong, Liv?
I think we've touched on this in sort of previous pods and stuff, but it was just a little bit of everything not being quite right. And then when you put it all together, you put it into the blender and it just didn't land, right? I think the semi-final was a really tricky one in that I think we thought we had the market on this sort of hot pop type thing, but actually we got flattened by like Erica Vickman and even Sissal. Like if you wanted a really fun, colourful, upbeat song, like there were just so many other things that I don't think we thought we would be competing with as much, but I think they actually split our vote quite a bit. And on top of that, I would say it wasn't maybe his best performance, the live one on the night as well, from what we saw at the rehearsals. I think he had done better ones as well, but it was a little bit of everything not quite being right.
Yeah, if I think about, like, I think we were perhaps all a little bit blind to it. Like, we were so excited by the blender and we thought the song was good and Gojo so charismatic. And then I just went into work and people were like, yeah, no, it didn't work. Like, it was a bit flat. Wasn't quite enough. Like, I didn't get it. It was a bit weird. Like, when the Australian general public, who are always inclined to like Australia, weren't getting it, and that was the general vibe I got when we didn't make it. Normal people I know, sorry, non-fan people, normal people I know, well, I wasn't that surprised. And so I do wonder if maybe we were just in the bubble so much that we like loved it and were wanting it because we could see how much they wanted it as well. And then it just went on the screen and it didn't quite have the same appeal to the general public that it had to us. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it just came down to execution, and there's a few different parts of the execution. Like, I still think that 30 seconds they showed in that run-up was great. I don't think we needed this is nitpicking. We didn't need the grandmother going into the, like, it was just all very distracting from the key elements, which was a great song and him. So this is those things, but overall everyone else lifted their staging game a lot this year, and I think we kind of just really hit into the novelty part rather than the kind of well-produced fun pop part, because I think the only other thing I would say is like, and we all kind of had that gut reaction a little bit at the start when we went in this direction. Think about all the ways we've qualified. Generally, everyone it's a really well put together package that they execute and sing really well. Even Jessica Malboy's semi-final was done really well. Maybe not her final, but we've qualified every single time or made the top 10 in the public vote. Like Isaiah fluffed his notes and he didn't make the top 10 of the public vote. When we do good quality stuff, we get in. And I just think we were like, they started from the point of Cardia. Like, that was 2 years ago. You got to find the new zeitgeist, not just follow what's happened. And I think maybe we fell into that trap to go, let's be fun. So anyway, I think I still enjoyed the campaign. I still enjoyed the song. Gojo's amazing. But ultimately, I think we're going to need some kind of change in direction if we're coming back. And I don't know, what are your thoughts? Craig, are we going to be back next year? And if so, what should we be doing?
Just one last point on what you were saying. I also don't think that being high quality is necessarily inconsistent with being fun, like, or quirky, or so Eurovision. Kate Miller-Hoke was so Eurovision and so quirky and stuff, but she also sung it really well and it looked so polished and it was really striking. Voyager, really fun, but also just really cool in a way that made people want to pick up their phones. So I think we've got to sort of move away from the idea that fun necessarily means like less serious or less sort of, polished, that you can have both and we should have both. In terms of whether we're going to be back next year, I don't know why not. I think if I was really, really worried after we NQ'd that the results were going to come out and we were going to have been like Sarah Bonici'd and have gotten 3 points, that would have been really bad. But yes, we've NQ'd 2 years in a row. We have the same qualification record in the 2020s as powerhouses like Latvia and Croatia, which is not great. But the fact that the two NQs in the last 2 years have been 11th, I think, shows that we're not really necessarily, like, we're not flopping out. We're not completely on the wrong track. It's just always little things, and we do start from behind on the public vote. So
Yep.
I don't think it's the end of the world. And I think we should be back. The EBU can't afford to lose us, frankly. So,
And Liv?
Yes, I totally agree. They cannot afford to lose any more countries at this point. And also going back into what Dale said, I think we were really assuming that a lot of countries like Armenia, Denmark, Luxembourg were probably going to be in the flop territory. And then we were all quite shocked when they really lifted their game. So there were a lot of entries that we really thought, oh, yeah, well, they're probably in the bottom five-ish. Yep. And then we watched the rehearsals and went, oh, we're a little in trouble here. So it was sort of unsurprising and surprising. But I will say, on a positive note, I've never seen Twitter rally behind Australia like this before. I see tweets every day still saying, robbed king, Australia was so robbed, like every single day. I've never seen people, in the wash up of Eurovision kind of batting for us in that way. So it's nice to see that, the really passionate Eurofan community loves us and it really, wants us there and stuff like that. So yes, they definitely need us back. They definitely need some other diverse countries back into Eurovision as well. And I think that should be a top priority from the EBU, is somehow figuring out how we can perhaps subsidise some other countries to bring them back in some way, because they bring diversity also to the televote and juries that we very desperately need.
Yeah, so I think ultimately to finish off with there is, I think we got parged ultimately, because that's who we lost out to. They lifted their staging. Ultimately, we had so many more countries vote for us than voted for Armenia. So we were liked a lot, and also a lot of the countries that we know well, like UK, Ireland, and a few others, gave us the sixes and the fives, the top five kind of result. So when we're kind of often talking to those other fans who are like, yeah, this is awesome, they did vote for it. It's just all those other countries in Europe who are just like, meh. So I think that's something also that we played well to maybe more of a Western audience, but we missed a lot. It just did not come for us whatsoever. So lessons learned, and I'm sure, and I hope SBS will be back, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I just want to qualify. And I love how our kind of like goalposts have moved. Like when Jessica Malboy came 20th, it was like the biggest disaster ever. I would kill for 20th right now. So just get us back in that grand final. All right. So, sorry, Craig, were you going to say something?
As long as it's not 20th in the semi, I'm happy.
Okie dokie. Well, we've kind of covered off everything here, but before we finish off, we're going to have like a final observation or a final point from everybody of something we might not have covered so far. Craig, what's yours?
I think it's interesting, and it's something I've perhaps sort of been banging on about for a couple of years, but I think it's really prominent this year, is it feels like the fan bubble and the betting odds, etc., continue to diverge more from the results as sort of the years go on. I initially thought this with the sort of like run of sort of ethno-y entries we have where the fans would love them and then they consistently flop. And I was like, this seems like something which fans love and normal people don't. But I think if you look at the top three this year, no fan had that top three in their heads. Like even Austria, which was the one that was in the betting odds that people thought might win, I think most fans had kind of written them off by the time it came along. And I think the best example of this, though, is probably looking at third and fourth. Like Tommy Cash, I mean, the fans hated the guy. Like no one was into this song, but then all the normal people out there, sorry, I'm going to call them normal people again, they loved this. They went for this so much, and it just felt like the bubble popping somewhat, because, then you had Sweden, which the fans obviously loved and were really behind, and they loved them as a sort of underdog because they're invested in sort of narratives that develop across the season and sort of narratives about what Eurovision is for and how it's for languages and cultures and stuff. And then the general public just went, funny spaghetti man, 200 points. So I think we've got to be careful in future years about letting, like, what the bubble loves is not necessarily what the public loves anymore. And I think we need to sort of be upfront about that as we approach future years.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because I definitely watch all the kind of betting stuff, and for many years, like for quite a few there, they were like nailing it. The qualifications were almost like Liverpool, almost 10 out of 10. The results were almost exactly how they played out. Particularly the last 2 years, things have kind of definitely started to split, and I think this year, I totally agree, has moved away a lot, and there was definitely stories that people wanted to tell, and the fans that just didn't come true in the end there, I think. All right, Liv, what about you?
For me, it's just, the decreasing amount of countries at Eurovision, basically. When you've got semi-finals where 10 are getting through and only 5 are getting culled, I mean, honestly, it's a harder pill to swallow when you're those 5 countries and it's only 1/3 that gets chucked out. Do you know what I mean? But on top of that, that we have plenty of Northern and Western Europe in Eurovision, but the East and the South, it's becoming expenny. They're having trouble coming back for lots of different reasons, and we need that diversity there because you see it in the televote, which is very important with lots of other things that are happening in the world right now, but also just in the songs. I mean, there's very few Eastern and Southern European songs that actually made it into Eurovision this year, like in the final, which is really, really sad to see. We need it, and that's what part of the charm of the contest is. We need a bit of everything.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that we probably haven't. I mean, we saw Montenegro come back after a very small break, as they often do to buy cars or whatever. But I think it was really interesting that they brought this public vote back to, I think, really try and get some of those Eastern countries back into the contest. And it just hasn't worked, and it hasn't helped them because they've done worse almost somehow. Like there was hardly any in this year. So I think there's a bit of a crisis, and it's starting to feel very Western European. And I think the more it does, the more risk we have of losing some, I think.
And just one other point on this, I think one of the arguments that often gets made against bringing back some of these countries is, the interest isn't there, the investment isn't there. If you look at the voting results for the rest of the world this year, like I think US and Canada are at the top, but after that it was like Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova. I can't remember there, but I remember Romania and Bulgaria, and I'm like, there clearly is interest there. So I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, I agree with Liv. We definitely need as many as we can at the party.
Yeah, and I think this whole kind of, even though it's kind of failed miserably, this kind of expansion globally of Eurovision to lots of different continents, which has not worked anywhere yet or even taken off other than the American Song Contest, maybe just look in your own backyard and help grow it there because it's been slowly dying in that way. And they can kind of spin the ratings any way they want to, but they're far less than they used to be. I know we've lost Russia, but we have lost Turkey and those things, and there just doesn't seem to be any way back at the moment for some of those Eastern countries, and they need to make it happen. My final point is around, I know it sounds really sort of cliche, but you don't need to win Eurovision to win Eurovision. And this kind of comes into a little bit of a couple of my favorites. Obviously, Gojo, who's doing really well in terms of, as an NQ, the numbers he's getting is really remarkable. Selling out in London on tours, it's just so fantastic. It doesn't matter that it's an NQ. But also Germany, I think that was such a great result. I don't think they did as well in the placings this year, but to me it was such a better step for Germany. A song that sounded like it should be from there. They've just been so flopping hard for so long, and to see them charting and the highest charting in the global Billboard for that cracking song, which I absolutely love, that is brilliant. That is a win, much more than if, they came 15th, and if they came 11th, who cares? Getting that result beyond and building that audience is just phenomenal, and it's a wonderful platform for artists to do well. And trying to get people to come in and do Eurovision, that's the selling point. It's beyond Eurovision, and you can actually get a step up in your career from it.
Yeah, although not to end on a dark note, but they literally finished. So the German guys this year finished behind Isaac last year, which I think is the most depressing result of the entire year, frankly.
But that just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think they did better on the public vote, and I think that'll care more for the Germans, I think, a bit like Australia. I think it'd be like almost someone not getting as a good result as Sheldon, but getting a better public vote, maybe. That would have been the win that they want to get.
Glass half full, glass half full.
And I think Sweden can think like that as well, actually, because it's been a long time since they've gotten a higher result in their televote than the jury. And I know that they flopped hard in the results in the end compared to what everyone thought they would, but it's still very nice for Sweden to finally not just be relying on a jury crutch there. Televote did love it.
Yeah, I felt like people tried a few new things this year. Some worked, some didn't. And then maybe they'll all just come back and do what they normally do next year. Bring back the juries for the semis. Let's get Australia through. Just send something jury bait and just let's get through and get some points. And we'll see how it goes. Well, look, it's been a very kind of up and down season. I think it's kind of ended on a high, but also maybe with some question marks for the future. But the fact that we're also invigorated to take it on again means I think it was a good Eurovision 2025 and season. And thank you for all your efforts, Liv and Craig, throughout the whole year, but particularly Eurovision week. And thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for your hard work, Craig and Dale.
All right, catch us later. Bye.
Cheers, bye.
Now, before we finish up, I just wanted to say a big thank you to you, the listeners. It's been a transition year for us on the podcast, with Mike sort of stepping back as co-host and just being the special guest with his very interesting takes on the year, getting excited or just sing some of the certain songs. And for those on Patreon, we will have a special episode where Mike and I are going to go through the results of Eurovision, the Eurovision season as well, in our own kind of way. So look out for that coming very soon. But yes, I wanted to say thank you for everyone to coming on this new ride with Aussievision. We really haven't lost the audience at all, which has been fantastic. We've gained new people and we've got to hear from our team who do such a great job. And I'm so glad you've got to know them a lot this year. We're planning some really big and special things next year for the podcast, and we'll be back much earlier in the season for 2026. So for now, either check out the Patreon and do support us. Our costs don't stop during the off season, so we do need to keep all that going. So any of your support really matters, and there will be a bonus episode soon. As always, for our season finale, we do like to finish off with a song that wraps up the year. And I thought after they hosted such a great contest, let's finish on Switzerland and Voyage.
J'avais